Today's scriptural passage, the gospel, comes from Matthew's gospel, the 8th chapter, and it is a pretty well-known story when the apostles on the Sea of Galilee find themselves in a mighty storm, and they are frightened because it seems that the boat might be sinking, and they were far offshore, and in the storm with the waves bursting and foaming, it was a frightening moment, and they turned to Christ, who was in the boat with them. Yes, and he's asleep. Now, of course, we can ask the question, how is Christ asleep in a boat during the middle of a storm? But I suppose that's another story for another day. But what we find is our loving apostles scared. And they gather together and call on Christ, Lord, the boat is about to sink, help us. And Christ awakens and says, oh, ye of little faith. He turns to the storm and it's quiet. The storm passes over. And the apostles look at one another and say to themselves, what kind of man is this? I guess that begs the question. What kind of man is Christ in your life? Is he asleep? Are you in the midst of a storm? Have you chosen to awaken him, or have you chosen to try to get through the storm all by yourself? It's when we look back on our lives and those moments where the tempests blow and we are frightened. When we look back at the storm, we somehow got through them. Some way, maybe a little bit tattered and torn, but we do get through them. And we, at that moment, must ask ourselves, what kind of man was with us at that moment? Were we one with God in that moment? Did we awaken him? Did we turn to him even in our timid faith? Even though Christ says to them, oh, ye of little faith, he did what they asked him to do. He quieted the storm. It's what I've always found interesting, at least in my life, is that I am often afraid of the many storms, the hurts, the fear, the terror of raising children, the many things that they get into, the worry, the concern, the 2 o'clock in the morning times when I wonder either where they are, what they're doing, or how they do it. In every storm, the last raindrop does fall, and the storm is over. And we look back, as have I, and realize the very storm I feared was when my faith grew the greatest. Now, I'm not saying we should not be afraid of storms, but we must recognize that it is in those storms when our faith stands up, our faith gets us through the storm. It does not avoid the storm, walks with us, comes with us, guides us through the storm. And that is the kind of man that Jesus was. He helps us in the midst of our fear, knowing it is in the fear that our faith grows.